Nursing 230. I just finished reading 27 papers and I enjoy them very much. And I wanted to give you guys some feedback. Oh, good God. Not looking my best at this moment, but that's okay. So first of all, I wanted to say that the way that I grade a paper is, I look at the title page and check to see if it's in APA format. And then I look at the references and see what the paper is based on. So if you write an amazing paper, but the references are from Ladies Home Journal and, People Magazine, then obviously I know that the claims that you make or the references that you use aren't backed by solid resources. So I go directly to the reference page and I look at the quality of your resources, and then also go ahead and grade the APA format on your reference page. So then I go through the paper directly using the rubric. So basically, when you write a paper and you're finished with it, you should look at that rubric and pretend to grade your own paper. So and I didn't actually bring it up here to my room, but if it says using the picture to or to make a link between the picture and what your paper is about, then you should have done that. And there are a few people who didn't mention the purpose of or the significance of their picture in their paper at all, and so obviously you kind of lose some points there. So I wrote down quite a few things that I'm going to go over briefly about what I noticed on the papers. So number one, the nursing process. So you learned very briefly about ADPI, so assessment, diagnosis, implementation, and evaluation. So from here on out, when you're writing papers or when you're, writing papers or doing anything, I guess, in the nursing program, it's helpful to use the nursing process. So what was the wellness assessment? It was the first that everybody took, on the 7 dimensions of wellness. It was the assessment process of the nursing process. So assessment and then diagnose. What did you want to change about your personal wellness at this moment? And then, what are you going to implement? What's your plan and how are you going to implement it? The other part is that when you make goals for patients, and I know that you're just beginning, this is your first semester, so I am not a super tough grader, but your goals should be specific and measurable, and that will come up again and again. So if your goal is to eat healthy, right? So I'm going to eat healthier. What does that mean? That means, that's a general term. So what does it mean? If it was specific and measurable, it would mean that you state that I am going to eat 2 more servings of fruits or vegetables per day, more than I was previously eating for the next 6 months or something like that. And so after 6 months, you could evaluate your plan and see that yes or no. Did I eat 2 servings of fruits and vegetables, or did I not? So if you say I'm going to eat healthier, that's not specific or measurable. That makes sense, right? Yes. Number 2. So quotations versus paraphrasing. So on the rubric it said no quotations. However, many students did use quotations with quotation marks, so a direct quote from their resources. In a professional nursing paper, the expectation is that you would read your source and you would get the idea of what they're trying to say. It's not your idea, it's their idea. And then you would paraphrase it in your own words and then cite it, giving them credit for having that idea. So, so yes, you may love what they say as a quotation, but it is stronger and more professional to paraphrase that. So I guess just the term quote versus paraphrase is confusing when you're a beginner, and I get that. So, so now you know that using quotation marks as a direct quote is not as strong as reading what they're saying, digesting it and interpreting it, and then writing it in your own words and giving the author of that article credit for their thoughts, which strengthens whatever point you're trying to make, right? So I think I'll skip directly to, even though it's further down my list, generalizations. So generalizations happened in almost every single paper, and that's okay. But basically, what a generalization is you making a statement that's not backed by any sort of research. So, nurses must eat healthy and demonstrate holistic wellness. Says who? I wrote that on a lot of papers, and I wasn't being sassy. I was just saying, well, who says that nurses must do this, right? So that's a generalization. Or in order to be healthy, you must eat, the myplate.gov recommendation of, a healthy diet. Well, yes. But you would cite that. Well, that wasn't the best example, because then you could. So if you did say that, the best way to say it would be to say, according to the U.S. Department of Health, the myplate.gov recommendation style of eating or something like that is the healthiest way because it blah, 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 blah. And then you would cite, is it Department of Health? Anyway, myplate.gov. So, generalizations are not backed by any evidence, and it's the same as kind of an opinion. So, it's really important for every statement that you make to have evidence-based research as the background. And I am so happy to talk to you guys about any questions you have on my comments, or if this was your fourth or fifth draft that you turned in and I was giving you feedback and you were going to incorporate it and then make a final draft, then how we would change things to make it a stronger paper. So that was generalizations. So the other part of that, though, is if you make a claim or a generalization and you don't cite the source, and I know that it's not your own idea, then that's plagiarism. So plagiarism is writing an idea that is not purely your own without citing it. And there was a lot of that going on. I didn't write the P word, the plagiarism word, on anybody's paper because you are beginning to understand what APA is. But, every single idea in any paper that's not your own has to be cited. So you have to be really, really careful, and moving forward, there will not be, how do you say it lightly, much leeway given for that. Okay. So, Writing Center. So it was highly recommended that every person use the Writing Center and or a peer or two peers to read their paper before they submitted it, right? So a professional paper has at least 4 drafts where you write a draft, you have a peer read it, and then you make corrections, then you have another peer read it, then you make corrections, you do another draft, and then maybe you give it to the Writing Center online, and they help you make corrections. So I am very curious how many people did that. You had an extra week for your paper, and I found quite a few very simple grammar and professional tone and APA type mistakes that would have been picked up by a peer or the writing center. So again, this is your first paper in nursing school, and I am a compassionate person, but it will not be this way in the future. So I highly recommend that you use those resources that are out there for you. The next thing is health versus wellness. So in our first class, we talked about the definition of health versus wellness. And you need to come out of this class knowing the difference. So the 7 dimensions of wellness were what your assessment was based on. But a lot of people were talking about health. And I think that could have been confusing because the title of the paper was called Picturing Health. So on many people's papers, I commented about the difference between health and wellness and what did you really mean when you were describing your goals. Next comment is APA. So when you are citing your resource using APA format in a professional nursing paper, you do not need to do an introduction to the author and the researchers. It's just not necessary. So if you want to say, according to Smith and Jones, holistic wellness is imperative for nurses, period, parentheses, Smith and Jones, 2018, parentheses, period. Did I ever say period? Anyway, proper APA format. You don't need to do an introduction like Dr. Smith and Dr. Jones from Harvard Medical Center in 2018 did a study about blah, 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 blah. That part can just be left out. You don't need to do that. Next is conclusion paragraph. So the conclusion paragraph links the main ideas from the paper with your thesis statement. So you kind of pull it all together in one last paragraph. How many sentences is in a paragraph? Are in a paragraph? More than one, more than two, probably more than 3 to develop your idea fully. So there were a lot of 1 or 2 sentence conclusion paragraphs, and that's not really enough to pull it all together. So you would say you would link in what your first. So I would like to increase my holistic wellness by addressing my physical wellness and my spiritual wellness. And then you go on in a few paragraphs telling how you're going to do that. And then your conclusion paragraph would say, so I have discussed how I'm going to work on, that's not the most professional term, how I'm going to implement strategies for for improving my physical wellness and my spiritual wellness. And I will evaluate it in 6 months and see how I'm doing. So 3, 4, 5 sentences linking it all together. Okay, next, professional tone. So professional tone or scholarly writing style is on the rubric. So it's third person, past tense, formal. And so language like, I read so many and now I'm blanking on some of the terms, but any sort of, they call it colloquialism, which is kind of slang terms or, modern language you want to avoid in professional papers. So, so I wrote professional tone, or the abbreviation prof tone, or scholarly writing on a lot of phrases and sentences throughout. And what it means is just that you could rephrase that in a much more professional way. So you're going to want to work on that as you work on your writing style in the next 3.5 years. Image needs to be cited. Oh, right. So if you take an image off the internet, or if your image was taken by a professional photographer, then that actually needs to be cited according to APA. And I didn't ding anybody for that, but it's a truth, right? Okay, 2 last things. So my comments as I'm going through 27 papers and taking a lot of time writing them, I'm basically just looking for how I can give feedback. So, in my natural way of being, I would definitely lead with a positive and be like, this is so great, this is so great, I love your thoughts, I love this, and this is what you need to work on. It's hard to do that in a paper, so that would be like 3 times as much writing. So basically I go through and I just give feedback on everything that's wrong, and that feels really negative to me. So I just want you to know that that papers, I respect the fact that papers take a really long time to write. There are a lot of pieces, the APA, the research, following the rubric, doing your reflections and your goals. It takes a lot of time. So I honor that, and I would have liked to put a ton more positive feedback, but when I'm in my speed correcting mode, I just go through and I give feedback on everything that is not right. So please know that it's just feedback from my heart, trying to help you improve your writing style so that you will not get so that you will be successful in the future. We'll say it positively. And then lastly, I wrote this on probably half the papers, but not all of them. Please let me know if you have questions on any of my feedback. I would love to sit down with every one of you and go over your paper and how it could be made stronger with some few corrections. So if I didn't write, please what did I say? Please let me know if you have any feedback. Then please know that I really mean that, and I can make time to go over them. Also, if I wrote on there too, I highly recommend that you work with a writing center. I mean that. So to me, this paper is a kind of a screening tool to gauge how you will do on your next paper, right? So some people are just great writers. I was not a great writer, and it took me a long time to get up to the right level of writing in order to be successful and actually get like an 85 on a paper, right? So I started out at like a 75 and ended up getting to an 85 by the time I was done nursing school. Some people, it's their thing and they're amazing. So just know that I've read hundreds, gosh, I wonder if it's 1,000 by now, but so many papers, and I know what good professional writing looks like. And so if yours was not up to speed and I recommended that, it's because I want to help you, and I want you to be successful in your meeting the the expected outcome of being able to write a professional paper. So thanks for listening.